My heart was pounding so fiercely that I could hardly believe what was happening. I never imagined that Shaban, the very man who claimed to love me, could do such a thing. In his name I had done everything. I had become so blinded by his love that I found myself entangled in grave sins. Even though I never truly wanted to agree to his demands for which my heart was never willing, I was forced into accepting them. His sole purpose in making those demands was to have me fall even more deeply in love with him. Little did I know then what misery awaited me. I had only feared God and the disapproval of my parents. But when I reached the point where I no longer felt fear, where neither apprehension nor dread held me back, I collapsed under the weight of my own choices. I was forced to face the bitter consequences of my actions. Entering into illicit relations with a non-mahram cost me dearly. Our religion forbids such behavior, and it was not without reason. Now, what Shaban began demanding from me was utterly unacceptable. In the depths of my heart, I trembled as I wondered what would happen next. He had clearly threatened that if I did not obey his every command, he would show that video to my brother. How could I ever comply with such a demand? I could not even consider it, for it went against every fiber of my being. I loved him once. I had been so utterly intoxicated by his love that I lost all sense of right and wrong. In the haze of love and desire, everything became distorted. I had willingly sacrificed not only my honor but also the sacred bonds of my family. Now he intended to carry on his schemes with his friends as well. No, no. The mere thought of it made me shudder uncontrollably. For days he continued to threaten me relentlessly, yet I refused to change my stance. I was not a plaything or a prostitute who could be easily manipulated for his amusement. The sound of his words, intended to coax or coerce me, sent shivers down my spine. Then he showed me a screenshot, a small video clip that he had already shared with my brother. As I watched, I trembled so violently that I felt my body go numb. With trembling hands, I clasped them together and pleaded with him, "Please, delete it immediately. If my brother sees that, who knows what he might do? He could even kill me." His voice was cold and unwavering as he replied, "If you do not do as I say, if you continue to refuse, I will send you the full video, and I will show it to anyone I please." He continued, "I had to take all these steps just to get you to listen. If you want me not to send the full video, if you want me not to share it with anyone else, then you must do exactly what I say." I tried to reason with him, but before I could further protest, my brother entered the house. His face was flushed with anger, and as soon as he arrived, he asked Mother about me. Mother's shocked reaction at his expression deepened my terror. I became so frightened that I felt an overwhelming urge to hide somewhere where no one would ever see me. At that moment, my brother stepped into the room. I stood in a corner, frozen with fear, barely able to move as his intense gaze fixed upon me. I lowered my eyes, my entire being trembling uncontrollably. I knew in my heart what kind of treatment awaited me, that my reputation would be ruined in the eyes of everyone. Then my brother approached, lifted my chin roughly, and stared into my eyes with a cold, unyielding expression. He then played the video in front of me and demanded in a harsh tone, "What is all this? Who is this man, and why are you in this hotel room with him?" When I saw that video, my cheeks burned with shame and I closed my eyes, unable to bear the humiliation. In that video, not a single piece of proper clothing adorned my body. The evidence of my betrayal was undeniable as it lay in his hands. Tears streamed down my face as I fell to my knees at his feet, pleading, "Please forgive me. I promise that from this day forward, I will never do such a thing again. I have made a terrible mistake. Everything that happened occurred without my full awareness." I realized then the magnitude of my error. I had betrayed not only my husband's trust but also the very honor of our family. The price of my sin was immense, and I knew that the consequences would follow me for the rest of my life. I remember the moment so clearly, the moment when my heart, once so blindly in love, led me astray into a sin so grievous that its weight would crush me forever. I had been manipulated into believing that I was worthy of his affection, yet in doing so, I had risked everything that was sacred to me. I had allowed the forbidden love of a man unworthy of true devotion to take control, and now I was forced to pay the price. My heart ached with regret and despair as I silently wept, realizing that I had sacrificed not only my own dignity but also that of my entire family. Thus, I stand before you as a living testament to the devastating consequences of losing one's way, a warning to all who might be tempted to trade their honor for a moment of misguided passion. I beg you, hold fast to your dignity and never allow yourself to be manipulated by those whose love comes at too steep a price. Remember the value of your own worth, for once lost, it is nearly impossible to regain. Then my brother grabbed me by the shoulder and hoisted me up, saying, "None of this happened by your own choice." I shook my head and replied, "I was swept away by your words. I never imagined you would do this to me, especially since you had promised to marry me." With that, I burst into uncontrollable sobs. At that moment, my brother uttered something that made my eyes widen in shock. He said, "If you want me not to tell Mother about you, then you must do exactly as I say, no deviations." After our father passed away, Mother had worked incredibly hard to raise both of us. She had ensured that we received our education and provided for every need we had. At that time I was studying in college, and I was very dear to both Mother and my brother. Over the years, as time passed, Mother grew weaker and older, and she could no longer do the sewing work as she used to. That particular day, her health was terribly poor. She told my brother that, to keep the household running, he must take on a small part-time job, as she no longer had the strength to do everything herself. My brother, however, became angry and retorted, "I am too young to be burdened with responsibilities. If I start working just to earn money, when will I have time to study?" Hearing his selfish words brought tears to Mother's eyes, and it filled me with deep anger. He had always been self-centered. It was as if he had lost all sensitivity and failed to understand Mother's plight. At home, I used to tutor the younger children to make a modest living, which at least lightened the burden of our personal expenses on Mother. Yet my brother continued to beg for small luxuries in front of her, a behavior that pained me deeply. Around that time, one of my friends found an online job for me. Although it did not pay much, since after classes and tutoring I barely had any time left, I managed to devote what little time I had to earning online. Then one day, I received a call from an unknown number. When I looked at the display picture, my eyes widened in surprise because the man was strikingly handsome. His voicemail expressed a desire to become friends. His voice was equally charming and deep, a kind of voice I found irresistibly attractive. Began to forget about Mother's strict teachings and the need to preserve my own dignity, and I became increasingly absorbed in our conversations. His name was Shaban, and he lived in the same city. After we became friends, he started insisting on meeting me. At first I tried to postpone, but eventually he grew angry and stopped talking to me. His anger weighed on me because I couldn't bear the thought of being estranged from someone whose voice I awaited every day. My day simply could not pass without hearing him. Unable to tolerate his silence any longer, I promised to meet him. I also extracted a promise from him that he would not do anything wrong with me. That day, instead of heading to college as usual, I left home under the pretext of college and went to a hotel to meet him. Now I was standing face to face with him, and the man who claimed to offer pure love suddenly began to make advances as soon as we found ourselves alone. His inappropriate gestures made me panic. I recalled clearly how he had assured me, "Nothing will happen between us, we will only talk and gaze at each other." Yet, as soon as we were alone, he started to encroach upon my personal space. Hearing my protest, he burst into loud laughter, almost mocking me. He said, "If I love you, shouldn't I claim my right to your love?" At that moment, my heart was pounding with a mix of desire and dread. I had already crossed a line that I could never uncross, and his bold, unrestrained behavior shook me to my core. I felt trapped between the remnants of a love that had blinded me and the heavy realization of the sins I had committed. His earlier promise of pure conversation had been replaced by actions that contradicted every word he had spoken. As I looked into his eyes, I saw not the gentle friend I once knew, but a man whose intentions had now grown sinister with each passing moment. I was overwhelmed with regret, knowing that I had allowed myself to be led astray by someone I once trusted. My mind raced back to the days when Mother had cared for us with endless sacrifices, when I was the darling of the family, and my brother and I had shared a bond that nothing could break. Those cherished memories made my current disgrace all the more unbearable. I could not fathom how the man I had loved so dearly had betrayed not only my trust but also the sanctity of our family's honor. I was caught in a nightmare where every promise had been shattered. I remembered how, in the past, I had clung to Mother's teachings and the values that had once defined my life. But in the haze of forbidden love, I had thrown all those values aside, trading my honor for the ephemeral thrill of his affection. Now, as I stood there, witnessing his unabashed advances and recalling his harsh words, I felt the full weight of my mistake pressing down on me. In that hotel room, surrounded by the echoes of promises broken and trust betrayed, I realized that I had lost everything dear to me. My soul trembled at the thought of the consequences that awaited me, consequences that would forever stain my reputation and that of my family. With tears streaming down my face, I could only beg for forgiveness, whispering to myself that I would never repeat this grievous mistake again. And as I wept, I vowed to myself that I would never again allow my heart to be so blindly swayed by someone who had promised love but delivered only ruin. But before marriage, none of this would have seemed so wrong. You should send your parents to my house tomorrow, and I will persuade my family for the marriage. After that, you can do whatever you wish. Those were his final words as I, embarrassed, lowered my face. He gently touched the side of my face and lifted it, looking deep into my eyes, and asked in a measured tone, "Do you really want to be distant from me?" His calm yet insistent tone, combined with his nearness, sent my heart racing uncontrollably. My pulse began to beat erratically. I felt utterly overwhelmed. My situation was beyond comprehension. "No, Shaban, it's not like that," I stammered. "I was simply swept away by your words. I lost myself in your love, and I did things I never imagined I would. I didn't know you would do this to me. You who had promised to marry me." At that, I broke down into bitter, uncontrollable sobs. Then he said something that made my eyes widen in shock. "If you want me not to tell Mother about you, then you must do exactly as I say. No deviations." His words, delivered so matter-of-factly, chilled me to the core. I recalled the past vividly. After our father's death, Mother had struggled tirelessly to raise both my brother and me. She had ensured that we were educated and had provided for all our needs. Back then I was in college, and I was dearly loved by both Mother and my brother. As time passed, Mother grew frail and old. She could no longer manage the sewing work that once filled her days. On that fateful day, her health had been terribly poor. She had told my brother that, to keep the household running, he must take on a small part-time job because she no longer had the strength to do everything herself. When my brother heard this, he became angry and said, "I'm too young to be burdened with responsibilities. If I start working just to earn money, when will I have time for my studies?" Hearing his selfish retort brought tears to Mother's eyes, and it filled me with deep resentment. I was pained by his constant demands for trivial luxuries, even as I managed my tutoring work for the younger children to ease the burden on Mother. Around that time, a friend had given me an online job. Although the pay was modest, after all, between college and tutoring I had little spare time, I persisted with it. Then one day, my mobile rang from an unknown number. When I saw the display picture, my eyes widened in disbelief. The man was strikingly handsome. His voice message expressed a desire to become friends, and his deep, resonant tone was as attractive as it was earnest. I found myself drawn to his voice, so enchanting that I began to forget Mother's teachings and the need to safeguard my dignity. His name was Shaban, and he lived in the same city. As our friendship blossomed, he began insisting on meeting me. At first I made excuses, but soon he grew angry and stopped communicating. His silence weighed on me. I couldn't stand not hearing his voice, and I felt the emptiness of his absence every day. Finally, unable to bear his prolonged silence, I agreed to meet him. I extracted a promise from him that he would not do anything untoward, that we would only meet as friends. That day, I left home under the pretext of going to college, but instead I went to a hotel to meet him. Now I stood face to face with him. The man who had once claimed to offer only pure, chaste love now began to make advances as soon as we were alone. His subtle caresses and the suggestive closeness between us sent a jolt of panic through me. I remembered his earlier reassurance. Nothing will happen between us, we will merely talk and gaze at one another. But here, in the intimacy of that hotel room, his actions betrayed his words. He laughed heartily, almost mocking me, and said, "If I love you, shouldn't I claim my right to your love?" I felt my heart clench with both desire and terror. His tone shifted from playful to commanding in an instant. I hesitated, struggling to reconcile the gentle friend I once knew with the man now pressing his demands upon me. His voice softened momentarily as he spoke again. "I know you love me deeply, and I know you will never refuse me." And then, in the heat of our passion, everything we had promised to ourselves was lost. In a heartbeat, his demeanor changed entirely. Where there had once been warmth and tenderness, now there was only cold calculation. At that precise moment my phone rang, a call from someone unknown. As soon as the ringtone sounded, a faint smile played upon his lips. "I have to leave for an urgent matter," he said abruptly. "Come, let me drop you off near your house." I longed to continue talking to him, to hold on to that fleeting connection, but understanding his busyness, I reluctantly agreed. I stood there, half waiting for his parting words, hoping he might say something kind about the time we had spent together. Yet, as soon as he left, his words seemed locked away, as if he had sealed his lips. Later, when I returned home, Mother saw me immediately and exclaimed in alarm, "Are you all right? Why does your face look so different?" I stammered out that suddenly I had felt unwell at college, something about medicine and fatigue. Mother busied herself with her work, trusting that I would never do anything wrong. Embarrassed, I retreated to my room. For 2 days, I repeatedly dialed Shaban's number, calling and sending messages, but he would not answer. This silence tormented me. I wondered why he was acting so distant, why he wouldn't speak to me. The thought gnawed at my heart. Then, on the 3rd day, when he finally answered a call, he said something that made the ground seem to vanish beneath my feet. "Everything you did with me, you will also do with my friends," he said coldly. "You have no idea that every single moment in that hotel room was recorded. If you do not do as I say, I will show that video to everyone." It was then I realized that he was nothing more than a flirt, a man who had used me in the name of love. Overwhelmed by despair, I burst into tears once again, knowing that nothing could undo what had been done. His threat, if executed, would shatter any remaining remnants of my dignity. My brother might even come after me in fury. And then, as if to confirm my worst fears, he sent the video to my brother. There, standing before me, my own flesh and blood was witnessing the evidence of my disgrace. Instead of retracting his threat, he pressed further, insisting that I continue to do as he commanded. I was left speechless, my mind reeling with disbelief that my own brother could be subjected to this, that he, too, was involved in the unyielding torment of my betrayal. I could hardly believe it. My brother, who should have protected me, was now forced to watch the consequences of my folly. I was filled with a sorrow so deep that I felt as if my very soul was being torn apart. Every word he spoke, every look in his eyes, confirmed that nothing would ever be the same again. My world had been irrevocably shattered by a man I once loved, and now even my own kin was condemning me for it. When I refused, he began threatening me, saying, "I will tell Mother everything, and you know what she will do to you." I broke down in helpless sobs. Shaban, who was not a mahram to me, had once been the person I loved most in my life and trusted above all others. Yet he had deceived me, committing unspeakable acts with me. Now my very own brother, my guardian of honor, was not protecting me from this sin but instead was urging me to commit even more transgressions. I had no other choice except to yield to his demands. Otherwise, there seemed to be no other way out. The next day, he left under the pretext of dropping me off at college and then took me away to a flat. When we arrived there, already 3 or 4 young men were waiting, as if they had been expecting me. As soon as they saw me, their lecherous remarks began to fall from their lips. They complimented my brother in such a crude manner that I felt as if I were collapsing to the ground. My brother, seemingly indifferent, took some money from these boys and then left the flat, leaving me behind. There, those 4 treated me like an animal. I cried and pleaded, but no one paid any heed to my cries. It became a recurring nightmare. Every 2 or 3 days, my brother would take me to some flat where, usually, 1 or more boys were present. They would tear at my body and violate me, sometimes with my brother present and sometimes alone. I wondered silently what kind of brother he was. He possessed no sense of honor at all. In my heart, I was ashamed that he would abandon his own sister to the clutches of such men. No one in their right mind would behave as he did. I had grown utterly tired of this life. Yet I could not confide in Mother about any of it. I knew that if I told her, I would be the target of her severe wrath, and she would direct all her anger towards me. I felt trapped in an endless mire from which there seemed to be no escape. Worse still, my brother began calling these men to our house at night. One day he told me, "Give Mother the sleeping pills in her tea every night. That way she will sleep through the night, and we can get our work done." At that moment, nothing but malice and wickedness could be read on his face, and I burst into uncontrollable sobs. I could not believe that my own brother, a man who had always been my protector, my guardian of honor, could treat me in such a degrading way, caring nothing for my dignity. My heart ached with pain, yet I had reached the very limits of helplessness. Because of his actions, I was forced, day after day, to administer sleeping pills in Mother's tea every night. Then, each night, he would bring those men into our house, and they would spend the entire night violating me, leaving me in torment until dawn when I was too weak to even move. I could no longer muster the strength to walk or even rise from bed. By then, I had been granted holidays from college. All my exam papers had been completed, and my brother was exploiting the situation to his full advantage. Every morning, Mother would wake up complaining that she couldn't sleep. She would say, "I don't know why, but as soon as I lie down, my eyes grow heavy with sleep," and her constant murmurs filled me with dread. Every day she repeated the same complaint, and I found myself unable to speak for long without breaking down. On that day, my brother especially insisted that very special guests were coming. Then he said in a tone that left me trembling, "Before marriage, none of this would have seemed so wrong. You should send your parents to my house tomorrow, and I will persuade my family for the marriage. After that, you can do whatever you wish." Those were his final words as I, embarrassed, lowered my face. He gently touched the side of my face and lifted it, looking deep into my eyes, and asked in a measured tone, "Do you really want to be distant from me?" His calm yet insistent tone, combined with his nearness, sent my heart racing uncontrollably. My pulse began to beat erratically. I felt utterly overwhelmed. My situation was beyond comprehension. "No, Shaban, it's not like that," I stammered. "I was simply swept away by your words. I lost myself in your love, and I did things I never imagined I would. I didn't know you would do this to me. You who had promised to marry me." At that, I burst into bitter, uncontrollable sobs. Then he said something that made my eyes widen in shock. "If you want me not to tell Mother about you, then you must do exactly as I say. No deviations." His words, delivered so matter-of-factly, chilled me to the core. I recalled the past vividly. After our father's death, Mother had struggled tirelessly to raise both my brother and me. She had ensured that we were educated and had provided for every need we had. At that time I was in college, and I was dearly loved by both Mother and my brother. Over the years, as time passed, Mother grew frail and old. She could no longer manage the sewing work that once filled her days. On that fateful day, her health was terribly poor. She had told my brother that, to keep the household running, He must take on a small part-time job because she no longer had the strength to do everything herself. When my brother heard this, he became angry and said, "I'm too young to be burdened with responsibilities. If I start working just to earn money, when will I have time for my studies?" Hearing his selfish retort brought tears to Mother's eyes, and it filled me with deep resentment. I was pained by his constant demands for trivial luxuries, even as I managed my tutoring work for the younger children to ease the burden on Mother. I have now reached a point where I must confess that I was led astray by love, a love that turned into a curse. I remember how I trusted him more than anything, and now he was forcing me to obey his every command. I had no other choice, for I feared what he might do if I resisted. Each day, his threats grew stronger, and I found myself trapped in a cycle of despair, forced to obey him so that my very life would not be completely destroyed. When I resisted, he threatened once again that he would expose everything to Mother, knowing full well that Mother would not hesitate to punish me severely. I wept, for Shaban was not someone I should ever have trusted. I had given him all my love, and now he had deceived me in every possible way. My brother, who was supposed to protect my honor, instead joined in this vile charade. He not only failed to shield me but encouraged me to continue in this sinful path. I was left with no escape except to surrender to his demands. Thus I stand here battered and broken, with no path back to the life I once knew, a life where I was cherished by my family and protected by honor. Today you must be properly groomed and prepared, and you must charm them, for they are a very influential party. I do not want them to have any complaints about you. Often the boys leave angry because they say your behavior toward them is not right. I had turned my face away in disgust when I heard my brother's words. He was speaking as if he were a seasoned broker, and his tone set my blood boiling with anger. After he repeatedly insisted, I reluctantly pulled out a delicate, finely tailored frying pan suit and applied some light makeup. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I barely recognized my own reflection. Undoubtedly, I looked exceedingly beautiful. My sharp features appeared even more prominent with that makeup, and my fair complexion shone brilliantly against those dark garments. Yet, a mournful expression had clouded my face, and my sorrowful beauty was strangely alluring. Then he continued, "Today you must be well prepared and please them because they are a very tough crowd. I do not want them to have any complaint about you. Often, boys leave upset, saying your behavior with them is not proper." I listened as my brother spoke with a tone that resembled the polished rhetoric of a professional middleman. His words were so cutting that my mind seethed with anger. In response to his repeated insistence, I managed to extract from my wardrobe an exquisitely tailored suit made for the kitchen, paired with a light touch of makeup. Standing before the mirror, I scarcely recognized the woman I saw. Indeed, I looked remarkably beautiful. My sharp features were accentuated by the makeup, and the brilliant fairness of my skin contrasted vividly with the dark clothes. However, my face was marked with an air of mourning, and the poignant beauty of my sorrow was captivating in its own tragic way. Despite this inner grief, I knew I had to follow his orders. My brother's voice was firm, and his words left little room for debate. He spoke as though every word were a command not to be disobeyed, and his persuasive manner reminded me that I had no choice but to comply. As I prepared myself, I added a few extra touches to my appearance, more precise makeup and a hint of perfume, to ensure that I would impress them. I reminded myself silently that I must not let them find any fault in me. I had to be flawless in every aspect, for it was expected that I would be a perfect representative. I stepped out, walking slowly with a measured grace, and my heart pounded with a mixture of trepidation and reluctant resolve. I remembered my brother's instructions vividly. "Today, you must be ready and make them happy. They are a tough party, and I do not want any of them to have even the slightest complaint about you." His voice, like that of a broker dealing in precious commodities, still echoed in my ears. Even as I walked, I recalled how he had reassured me that if I behaved exactly as he had told me, nothing untoward would happen. He had emphasized that often boys would leave in a huff because they found my behavior unacceptable, yet this was something that needed to be managed, not avoided. Soon enough, I reached the venue where the party was held. Immediately, I sensed the imposing presence of the guests, a group of men whose expressions were stern and expectant. 4 of them in particular stood out. Their eyes, brimming with lecherous intent, followed my every step. I felt a chill run down my spine as they whispered amongst themselves. Their admiration for my appearance was tainted by a crude desire, and I felt exposed and vulnerable. My heart ached with sorrow, and tears threatened to spill from my eyes. Meanwhile, my brother lingered nearby, apparently indifferent to the unfolding scene. His focus solely on matters of money. To him, money had become so important that he seemed ready to cross any limit for it. I could feel the bitter weight of betrayal as I saw him negotiating with the group. Just then there was a knock on the door. When I glanced at the door, my heart sank to the depths of despair. There stood Mother, with her eyes wide open in horror, as if she could not believe the scene before her. My brother was present too, yet there was a marked difference between their expressions. Mother's face was etched with shock and disbelief, while my brother maintained a cold, indifferent demeanor. Mother could not fathom that the reality she was witnessing was true. In an instant she collapsed, falling to the floor in utter shock. She could not bear the weight of the news. The shock was too great, and she soon lost consciousness. Seeing Mother like that broke my heart. I immediately moved away from that place, desperately trying to extricate myself from the clutches of those men. I managed to escape with great difficulty, my body trembling uncontrollably with fear and shame. When we eventually arrived at the hospital with Mother, those 4 boys who had once ogled at me became unpleasantly unruly. On their way out, they handed my brother some money, saying, "Today, that girl spoiled everything. She left the work incomplete." After a long while, Mother regained